already on there.
I can't make anything up, but I always enjoy listening to teachers talking in groups. So anyway, hello everyone. What's the weather like in Iowa today?
Not bad.
Warming up.
Kind of. Could be worse.
It has been raining in Vermont the entire day. We had below zero the entire weekend, and now it's kind of warm and raining. It's really a mess. So anyway, let me get my PowerPoint up to get started and share my screen. And let's see, get this play. Okay, so are you seeing fast on your screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great. And I'm just going to get started basically trying to respond to the questions that you posed, and I really thank you for that. I mean, I got really good questions from just about all the grade levels. And we'll go through that first, and then I have some additional things at the end. But, you know, this is for you. And if there's something that's unclear or another question that you have, feel free to interrupt me at any point. And I always show people this because it is a struggle to learn something new, and this is a new system, and people get frustrated, but you know, just the fact that you're doing it, you're well ahead of people who are still standing still and scratching their heads. So, okay, so I'm just going to go through the questions pretty much as I received them, and I put in parentheses here where they came from, and this was an office one. The rest of them are grade levels. So how to use these measures as a diagnostic? Are there areas of needs broken down by Common Core standards? So information regarding the Common Core state standards is really available for all tasks, and I can get more information like that to you. It's very specific in the computer adaptive measure, which I think you're using AMAP, because that entire assessment was developed with Common Core state standards in mind. And then in terms of breaking things down, there are some reports that we can look at in a minute that really break down items in terms of an item analysis report, whole classes, so you can see that across a class what do kids know and not know. So am I answering your question, or was there a more specific issue around Common Core standards?
So is it just found in an item analysis report? That's what it's called?
Say that again.
So where do we find this item analysis report?
Okay, I'm going to make a note so that I don't forget, and once I get out of the PowerPoint, we'll get online and I'll show you that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So there were 3 questions that dealt with what reports should be shared with parents. 2 in the 1st grade and 1 in the 3rd grade. So I will show you when we get into the software, the item analysis report, and also the report that I would show a parent if I were a teacher. And it's the individual benchmark report, the one that has different colors of pink. Does that ring a bell to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a student at a glance report as well, which is not as easy to understand, but that would be a possibility as well. And the second question about a standard cover letter, this is something that a lot of people have asked about, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do develop something like that. I don't know, you know, how often you read what Fastbridge publishes online and when they send out a newsletter or whatever, but they have been quite successful, and they are going to be developing a new website probably toward the spring or summer, and so I think many positive changes are coming, but I encourage you to send a letter to the support team about wanting some information to send to parents, because that has come up before. And then the recommended method to share results with parents. line graph, parent letter, or template. There's I don't know, have any of you ever gone to Fast Insights?
No.
Okay, well, I will report this as well, because it's a really kind of nice resource. It's a blog within Fastbridge, and for whatever reason, they've made it very difficult to discover. So I'll show you how to get to Fast Insights, and they've asked the trainers to write some blog posts, and I'm glad they've asked us, because I have a couple of ideas that I'd like to write about, because we learn from customers what it is that people want to know. So anyway, I'll show you that. But don't hesitate to tell them what you need in terms of being able to communicate this information to parents, because that's a very important thing, and it should be part of parent conferences. Okay. Fifth and sixth asked, if we choose a tool to use for progress monitoring, are those the questions they'll be quizzed on each week? It depends on the measure. Typically, the items are going to be very similar to the items in the benchmark screening, but they're going to be in a different order. And for AMAP, if you are asking in relation to the adaptive math measure, it's a different assessment. The items are similar to the items in AMAP, but the AMAP progress monitoring screener, which is something that you need to administer if you want to do progress monitoring with AMAP, it's not a computer adaptive measure, okay? So it doesn't self-level like AMAP does. Any further questions about that? Does that just bring up confusion, or?
I'm confused with that,
Okay.
with that progress monitoring.
Tell me more.
Well, I did a progress monitoring assessment on like 3 of my students, and I guess I'm not quite sure now what, and I set them up in a progress monitoring group.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find it here. And they gave M1, it says this is a follow-up reminder for intervention. So I need to do the intervention again, but when they did it, it was like an AMAP test.
Yeah.
Okay? So now the levels, I did a grade 5 level, and
Yeah.
it says it's equated. I have like one student that got a 9, one that got a 10, and one that got a 14.
Right.
What do those mean? What do those numbers mean?
Okay, I'm making a note of that, and when we get into the software, we'll look at that, rather than get through the questions
Okay.
before I get out of
That's fine.
to the software.
That's fine.
AMAP progress monitor screener. What I'm going to show you later is like a 10-minute video clip of Ted Crisp setting up a progress monitoring schedule specifically for AMAP.
Okay.
Using the AMAP screener, and hopefully that will make more sense. I have to tell you that I think the math measures within Fastbridge are more complicated to learn to use. It's a denser concept for me, and for a lot of people. But on the other hand, the people that they have involved at Fastbridge in terms of setting up and developing the tasks and developing the norms for it, it's to me better than anything else that's out there. But it does take a while to learn how to use it. I find it pretty dense stuff.
Okay.
And I'll try to give you some resources that will make it easier. But it's amazing what they've come up with. Okay, so we'll get back to that. What progress monitorings are available for us? This is from kindergarten. Whenever you set up a progress monitoring schedule, so like the grade teacher was just talking about setting up a progress monitoring schedule. At the top of it, they'll have for kindergarten and first grade for early math, in bold, what the subtests might be that you would use for progress monitoring. And then I have some slides later on that may help with that as well. And then we will spend some time talking about how do you determine who needs to be progress monitored and with which tool. So, you know, you always screen with a broad general outcome measure, something that spans the school year and involves lots of students. But when a student shows a deficit, you want to progress with a narrow measure that you hope progress or meeting the benchmark for that particular narrow measure will be attained in a fairly short period of time. It's not something that you'll necessarily work on the entire year. So we will talk more about that, but you're always progress monitoring with a narrow measure, particularly in the math area. Okay? And third grade, can you show me how to progress monitor my students? Now, has everyone watched setting up progress monitoring groups, the video clip and the knowledge base?
No.
Okay, we'll visit the knowledge base so I can show you some of the things on there. And also, Dr. Christ did a webinar, I put October, I'm pretty sure that was it. It was not that long ago, specifically on progress monitoring in math. And again, some of it is quite dense, but every time I listen to it, I learn more about it. And he does reference early math in it, and some of the limitations with progress monitoring in early math, because in early math, some of the benchmark scores are fairly low. They, you know, like if you're at risk, I mean, the benchmark might be 8, and if you're at risk, it might be 5. And so when you're dealing with items that low of a number of items, it's really difficult to get some meaningful data as to progress over time because you don't really, you don't really get that result compared to something like numeral identification where there are many more items and the benchmark score is quite high. So I'll show you where that is. Should you progress monitor students who are on the fringe? And as with many things, it depends. The general guideline is that you really can only provide supplemental instruction to about 20% of your students. And if you're progress monitoring, the understanding is that the students that you're progress monitoring, you're providing an evidence-based intervention to, and with the appropriate dosage. And again, Chris talks about that being using an evidence-based intervention 20 minutes a week, 20 minutes a day, 4 times a week is generally the appropriate dosage for an intervention. So, that you're talking about a fair amount of time, and to do that well and with fidelity, it's difficult to do it for much more than 20% of your students. And so we're going to look at a report later that references the whole notion of using local norms to allocate resources. So you may have more than 20% of kids who might merit some sort of intervention or progress monitoring. But if you're going to do it with fidelity and do it well, you may not be able to do all the students who show need. And what you might need to do is to really focus your efforts on improving Tier 1 or, the instruction that all kids get. Does that answer the question? Sort of, maybe?
Yeah, I just want to make sure 20 minutes a day, 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he talks about that. You'll hear it when you hear the you have to do with that,
Okay,
um,
thank you.
to be doing appropriate intervention. And, you know, it's not to say that there aren't places that do it differently, but I think that if you're not doing the progress monitoring in a way, or doing the interventions in the way that they should be done with fidelity and enough intensity, there's probably no point in doing it. So, that's the guideline that's offered. So this one I wasn't entirely clear on, so I don't have an answer. At first grade, and students weren't able to complete the place value assessment due to turning pages, and it shows they're at risk. And then it indicates that you use paper and pencil.
Yes,
Do you want to expand on that?
it was a paper, assessment. They had to circle the number, it was using columns of 10 and then ones.
Right.
And, there were like 2 or 4 on each page, and then they would
Yeah.
have to turn to the next page. And,
Yeah.
they just didn't show success, but I think a lot of it was time spent on the paper and pencil.
And it was 1 minute timed assessment, so as they're flipping pages and only have a minute, it didn't work real well.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And again, this is one of those tasks that there aren't that many items. I think the highest score you can get on that is maybe an 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, for a task like that, it would make sense to me to use some teacher judgment as to whether the student knows the skill, but they're just not doing it quickly enough. And if you did progress monitor on that skill, I would assume that if the student knows the concept of what to do, of base 10 and then the ones blocks, that as they gain more experience or practice with it, that they would get faster. But the important thing is making a judgment about whether they understand what's being asked in the task itself. That's more important to me than the timing.
Okay.
Because I think there could be a number of reasons why some children might have difficulty with that task. First of all, it's very busy on the page, and then there are a lot of small things to look at. And, you know, those are kind of low-level cognitive skills that make children complete tasks quickly or not quickly. It's a real processing speed issue. So anyhow, I would focus on whether they understand the concepts that are being tapped by that skill,
So
rather
then-
than looking at the score only.
Yeah, the time limit just really didn't.
Right. And is there an option on that one to do it untimed? I forget.
I didn't see that.
Okay, maybe if we have time, we can, because for a lot of them, they've tried to make a determination of which tasks are important to be done quickly, and which ones it doesn't really matter. And so on some of them, they do afford the possibility of doing it untimed. So
Okay.
we'll look at that for place value. And if we don't get to that this afternoon, I'll do it on my own and I'll get back to you.
So does Fastbridge
go
take
ahead.
the comments that you hear then and maybe tweak the tests a little bit, or, you know,
Well,
if you know that
shouldn't
it's a
tweak
busy
the
page?
test at all, because, you know, these are supposed to be, and they are, not just supposed to be, they're standardized assessments. And so whenever you're comparing the performance of your students to any other norm or the benchmark, you have to, you have to have administered the task in the same way that it was administered to that reference group. So, I think that when you're doing instruction around these particular concepts, you know, have the freedom to do it however, But once you're into the assessment, it has to be administered pretty much the way that it's indicated.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm just saying that as you hear from teachers, are you continuously revising the test to make it better if you know that this is a concern? Would
Well,
you
I
then?
see what you're asking. You know, again, if you have an issue with a particular task, or if you have an idea that would make it better, easier, more accessible, whatever, drop a line to them, and I'll show you on the knowledge base where to do that. And they have changed and developed and deleted some things based on teacher feedback. That's one aspect of FastBridge that really, they are very invested in separating themselves from other assessment products, in that it's a dynamic system that changes based on a number of things, including user feedback. So absolutely, they do change things. And so if you have an idea on the place value assessment that might be done in a better or more efficient way, let them know that. Okay? Okay, how do we set up and use Group Proctor for universal screening days? Again, in the knowledge base, I'll show you where to do that. There's a print account that you can read. Different people learn different ways. I have to always read the print first and then listen to the video clip. And there's really quite a good video clip on that as well. I'll show you where that is. And then the other question from 4th grade was, would it be appropriate to have the older students input the group proctor username and password? And I would say no. Most of the things in here, there's no way, for example, for teachers to add or delete students. And this is, compared to other assessments. I used to be an Ames web trainer, and there was a way for teachers to do that. And within FastBridge, they've really set it up so that the manager of the account is the one who does most of the input of things. And it's a good safeguard, because then if there's a problem, you sort of know where it originates. And whenever you get into students with passwords and things, it's something about it doesn't feel right to me. So I wouldn't do it for that. And then the last sort of deals with this as well. Why would we have usernames and passwords for the students? And this is just so they can launch the assessments by themselves. You can send a bunch of kids to the computer lab, and they get on a computer, they get on the FastBridge site, they log in with a username and a password, and it launches the assessment that you want them to take without setting up a group proctor or having the teacher do this. I mean, obviously, I think this would be better for older students. I wouldn't send a first grader in that way, although there are probably some first graders that could do this. But the whole purpose of it is so that they can launch the assessment themselves for computer adaptive assessments. And then if the students each have their own username and password, what would they use them for? Well, only for launching the assessment. They would never get on there, to practice or to, there's really no skill practice or anything like that within FastBridge. It's only the assessment. So does that answer that question?
Christopher, does that answer your question?
It does. I still see no purpose for having a group proctor or a student password then. I mean, if I have to go around and put in the passwords myself, there's really no reason to give them a password as far as I can see. I might as well just go around and put it in myself.
Okay, and I understand completely what you're saying, and the reason that the whole issue of student passwords and login, usernames and passwords, the whole idea behind that being developed is because there were some customers who very much wanted that. Because what was originally available was the group proctor, and that came about because customers wanted it. And the advantage of the group proctor login is that the group proctor person cannot see any results. And when a student is taking an assessment within an account that's a group they can only launch their assessment, and then assessments that have been completed by other students, the teacher can see what the score was, but the student can't. So, okay, and then I was unclear about this question from 5-6. What does the progress monitoring number mean? Can you
That
expand
was
on
a
that?
score that I talked to you about, earlier.
Oh, okay.
The equated score.
Okay. All right, great. So, I think that was the end of the questions, yeah? So, just looking at, at universal screening results, this is a CDF reading report. And, you have on this left-hand side the benchmarks, and here on this side you have the percentile rankings for class, school, district, and national. And so I'm just going to go to the next one because it makes it a little bit bigger. And this is sort of to get at the question that you asked, how do you decide who to progress monitor? So just looking at the left-hand side here, this is a classroom of 23 children, and if we had more time, I'd have you much more engaged in doing counting and stuff. But 23 students, and then if you remember, these exclamation points are the indicators of risk, some risk, and 2 exclamation points are high risk. So out of a class of 23, we have 11 children at risk based on the benchmark for, this was 2013, 14, and it's in reading. And I think the benchmark for winter was roughly, I think 43 words read correctly per minute, but there's a benchmark for every measure. So in this particular instance, having 47% of your class at risk, what would that tell you?
You don't have time to do all of those.
Change it.
There's a problem with
Instruction
instructions.
board.
Yeah, curriculum's not.
Yeah, it really speaks to really looking at core instruction, doesn't it? And tier 1, because you can't possibly set up an intervention plan for half of your class and anticipate doing it with fidelity. And this is reading, but and I know you don't get these reports because you have Iowa tier, but these are accuracy scores, and we want 95% accuracy. If there's no box here, it means that the kids are reading with 95% accuracy. So there's a huge issue with accuracy in this class as well. So, people who would be dealing with this particular classroom and trying to make decisions, I would look at the entire grade level, all the first grade classrooms, and see what it looks like. But core instruction is the big output that I get from this particular report. So these are the benchmark reports, and benchmarks again are an indicator of proficiency at the end, at different points of the year, and they change over time with the benchmark at the end of the year, what you're striving for over the course of the year. And benchmarks are associated with other similar measures of reading, and they have nothing to do with comparing kids to other kids. The percentile rankings are what do that. So, when we talk about using the percentile rankings to allocate resources, this tells you who's at risk. This side of the report tells you who's going to receive intervention. And in this particular case, I would choose all the kids that are here in the red, because if we go back here, these kids are below the 20th percentile, okay? So you have these 5 kids below the 20th percentile. The kids here in the orange, that's below the 30th percentile. So you have to think about what your resources are in terms of intervention resources, and decide whether you could provide intervention to this many kids. definitely these kids. And so you would set up a progress monitoring schedule, definitely for these 5 kids. It's possible that for kids who are in the orange, below the 30th percentile, you might decide to progress monitor them once a month because you kind of want to get a gauge of how they're doing. In essence, you're progress monitoring your entire population 3 times a year with the universal screening, but there are some kids that you might want to see more frequently. So this is comparing just this class. And then the school ranking is comparing all the kids in first grade in that school who took this assessment. And so you get a little bit difference here.
I think I was the one that submitted that question for kindergarten. And I think my question may have been a little bit more specific than I laid it out, but what we're running into is we have our kids that, have the double exclamation points. So we know we need to progress monitor them. But when looking at early math and when looking at all the subtests that we give, my question was more so, out of those subtests, which are most important? Like with fast reading, they say we should progress monitor for letter sounds, or they give us they say this is the one you should focus on. So is there one similar to that for early math then as well?
I think there will be. I'm waiting for it, and I have asked for it, specifically because of the helpfulness of the early reading one. And I'll show you a couple of things here. Let me just do this. I don't know if this relates to the Common Core state standards for early math in kindergarten and first grade. Is this of any help? Was this related to the question that was asked about Common Core standards?
That was my question. Our reading consultant from the AEA was just commenting that it was kind of hard to find where the alignment was, so.
Okay.
So where did you find that?
Separately, I will do some of that work. And for any particular test or all of them?
Well, just to be able to use the information diagnostically, rather than, to where to start, strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, yeah. Do you use the A reading task as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and you're not able to find the Common Core alignment with that?
Don't know if we've ever looked for it.
Okay, because the way that they set up the reports, it's very much aligned that way. When your reading consultant was in, what assessment was she referencing?
No, I was talking about our math consultant. Did I say reading? I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. It should have been the math consultant. I apologize.
Okay, math consultant. Okay. So I will do some work on that and send an email to Diane, and she'll funnel it to the appropriate person. Does that sound good?
Yes, that sounds fine. Thank you.
Okay, because I know they have a ton of information on that, because that was the sort of the underpinning of FastBridge, is knowing that Common Core was coming and wanting to have an assessment that included that. So I'll get that to you. Okay, so I'm showing you this, which I'm sure you've seen before, but the whole idea here the main thing that I want you to get on this slide is that the number domain is what's emphasized in kindergarten, and operations are what is emphasized in grade 1 with early math. Okay. Now, the subtests within early math and also early reading are weighted by season. And I can show you where, if you want to read more about this, you can get the information.
Yes,
But-
that's what we've been looking for.
Oh my, well, I'm glad I found something helpful.
Yeah.
the thing is that, you know, they really are looking at two things. I mean, at first, I thought it was just the value of the skill in terms of its contribution to developing the general outcome measure by the end of the year. And that's part of it. But the other one is also the possible score range, because I think I mentioned before that some of these subtests have very limited score ranges, and apparently that enters into it as well. So, you know, for first grade, you can see that the only high one is in the spring, and that's story problems, where number sequence in kindergarten is incredibly important all the way across, as is decomposing, starting in the winter and also in the spring, okay? Where number identification is a low loading, and to me that relates well to letter identification. I mean, these things are good indicators of risk, but they're not instructional targets all on their own, okay? Any other questions about that? I'm glad you find this helpful.
And do you have that for 2nd through 6th grade?
Let me see. I don't think so. I think these were set up particularly for the early math and early reading because you get a composite score for those. Early reading has 4 tests that gives you a composite, and the composite is generally considered the most reliable score, but you're always interested in, you know, how kids have done on the 4 separate tasks, what's high and what's low. So I'm trying to think, I don't think that there are any other composite-based assessments other than early math and early reading. So what is it specifically that you're looking for at the upper grade level that might be something I could find in another way?
Like an item analysis, like if all the kids miss about problem solving, or they all don't know about fractions.
And there is one here, but it doesn't, if you click on it as one of the reports, it's called item level detail report. It doesn't allow you to choose, it says choose an assessment. Well, you can't do anything. It won't let you type anything in there or choose a class or grade. The only thing it lets you do is choose the period, like the fall, winter, spring. So you that is, I think, is what you would probably want, Michelle.
Yeah.
And I just.
Okay, I get what you're.
Item level
and I
detail
will
report.
do some work on that. And again, that's an area where I would, you know, as you're using this, and like the CBM math is still in lab this year. So you're using CBM math, the process one, and also the automaticity one. And because those are still lab measures, they are very much looking for input from users as to what they like and don't like. So those would be particularly good ones to give feedback on. Okay, these are just the benchmarks for early math in kindergarten and first grade. And I'm going to be sending you this this PowerPoint, so anything here that you want you can take. Whoops, I think that's it. So, what else I wanted to show you was
Wrong one.
now in CBM math automaticity skills assess. This might on things that you're interested in. So auticity is grades 1 through 3, and these are the skills assessed. Okay, and then we get into CBM process, grades 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And those are the skills assessed. So is that something you'd like to have a copy of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And what else did I want to see? Early math weights, I already did that. Okay. Have you, let me change the view on this a little bit.
We only look at this when we wanna have a headache, to be honest, Louise, this is too much. That's got too
What do
much
you mean?
information on it. It kind of overwhelms me anyway when I look at it.
This chart,
Yeah.
have you seen any of these for reading?
No.
Oh, they are phenomenal. Let me show you a reading one. Let me see.
You can send that to us if you want, that reading one, the reading ones.
Yeah? What did you ask?
The reading ones, can you send us those flow charts?
I will. Those are, to me, much easier to understand, and but it flows the same way.
Okay.
So you just kind of go through, and if yes, and if no, but it's really looking at, some of the reports, and you make a determination of less than 20% of your students at low risk for some risk. And if it's no, then you consider these kind of things, and that they have the math skills according to sort of developmental levels, starting from, addition is easier than subtraction, and it continues here. But these have been incredibly popular with people, and I'm hoping they have one for second, third, fourth, fifth, and I think sixth grade, but they don't have them yet for early math. And I'm hoping that they develop one, because people want that. And I will certainly let you know as I learn anything about that. So. And, in terms of progress monitoring, sometimes you're going to want to progress monitor with material that's below the grade level. And this is just a chart that lets you know which of the measures is available for below grade level progress monitoring. So I can send you that as well. All right. Now, I wanted to get, how are we doing for time? We're nearly there.
Yeah, we don't have much time left, so.
Okay, let me just, I really just want to show you one thing. It's amazing how 5 minutes goes by. Let me just get in here. Because I really wanted to show you the clip of setting up the progress monitoring schedule. So I've gotten on, I'm going to the knowledge base. And did I hear before that some people have been to the knowledge base and some haven't?
Yes.
Okay, you're so honest. The knowledge base, Ted Christ's dream with FAST is that people would be able to have all the resources available to them to learn how to use this over time without having to have trainers come in. So this is sort of an effort to make all the information about the assessments, how to do them, how to read reports, all available. But I think at the beginning, people like to have a trainer, but that's the dream, that he would have that all available to people. So in this getting started area right here, these are all really quick video clips, but there's one about the whole group proctor thing, and student passwords and logins. So that would be the way to find out how to do that, and it's a pretty simple process. So that's the group proctor. Now, webinars are excellent, with very few exceptions. They're just excellent. I clicked to get all 15 of them up here. Whenever they do a webinar, it's archived, so if it's not convenient for you to listen to it live, the advantage of listening to it live is that you can ask questions and things like that. But they're always archived. And it's professional development, and I think if you put in the time to listen to these things, you might consider applying for some professional development credit for it, because it's really great. And Chris is an incredibly knowledgeable person. So I said October, it was actually November, preparing for math progress monitoring and FAST, guidance and resources. And I will tell you that if you get into that webinar and you go to around 19 minutes and maybe 50 seconds, 1950, it goes for about 5 minutes. And he sets up a progress monitoring schedule for a student. But listening to the entire thing will give you a tremendous amount of information about what all these reports need. It's really pretty amazing. Okay? And there are others there as well. Unbelievable resources.
Is that where you find the fast insights from the knowledge base?
We must be having a mind meld because I was just going to show you that. So I want to get out of here and go back home. And I need to log out because you don't need to be logged in to Fast Insights. So, you know, you can tell me what you think. I think this is so nutty. There's nothing here that you Fast Insights, but if you click on Request Demo without logging in, you get Fast Insights. And I'm gonna click right here, and you can sign up, you know, to usually they're monthly, sometimes there are several per month. So if you give them your email address, you'll get these. So, you know, ones have been on reading, problem analysis, using progress monitoring data to make instructional decisions, progress monitoring mix, and some of the older posts. There was one here on parent, communicating data about achievement growth to parents. This didn't set the world on fire as far as I was concerned, but it does provide some helpful information. So anyhow, and we didn't get to any of the reports, did we?
No. Could you just can you send me some information about how to get there? Because we do.
About which report in particular? The item analysis report?
Yes.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll send that to Diane, send it to whoever needs it.
So today's goal was to get teachers to be more comfortable with progress monitoring and be able to get started. So I'm just going to ask, are we feeling any closer? Getting some head nods, yes, and
I've learned where I can find some information out to help me.
okay. Just wanted to let you know, Louise, that we are being looked at by surrounding districts because we're using fast math.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we want to be able to use it well and then be able to tell other people what we like about it, what we're struggling with, and that kind of thing.
Right. And I'm aware that some of these measures in math, I mean, they really, you know, the A math and the A reading were the two, you know, big measures that were really solid in FAST, and then they developed some other measures that are still in lab format, so that, you know, the assessments are fine, but they're still wanting to refine them, and they're still developing norms for them. So you can really have a lot of input into what you think on those kind of things. I'm just scrolling, I'm back in the knowledge base here, and I'm scrolling down through. And you know, I should show you, for those of you who haven't been on the knowledge base, if you're looking for something, you can enter a search term here in the top. But if you have an idea or a question or a concern, you click here for new support ticket, and you have a subject, and then you basically ask your question and submit it. And generally they get back to you within a day with a response. But what I was getting down to here with progress monitoring, and there's a whole section on progress monitoring in the knowledge base. And there's particularly a very good setting up progress monitoring groups. This is a video clip. So there's a way that you can read about it. And this is again the math progress monitoring and guidance flow charts. Just gonna see, yeah, they have them all the way up through 6th grade. But the video clip for setting up progress monitoring is excellent. She really goes through it in detail. So, I've made notes of what I should get back to you on, because I'm mindful of your time here. And I'll do that within the next couple of days. And if I leave something out or something else comes up in the meantime that you have a question about, don't hesitate to let me know, okay?
Okay. Louise, is there a time when that live chat is up? Because I never seem to catch them. I know that they are very quick to respond to tickets, but do they still do that live?
The live chat I have not seen being operational in a while. And I don't know if you had you ever worked with Lisa Langell?
No.
Okay, well, she had been sort of their head trainer, and she left in the fall because she's a multi-talented person, and she is also a photographer and was made an offer she couldn't refuse. But anyway, since then, things have been sort of, flux. They've hired some new people. They've hired Rachel Brown Chidsey. I don't know if you know Rachel. She's written books and things. And she's just going to show you one more thing. And so things are not as quick as they used to be. I noticed that when I've asked questions where sometimes I would get a response within an hour, now it takes longer. And the live chat is not that. I developed this resource sheet for MTSS. Is this something that you'd be interested in? I'd be happy to send it to you.
Sure, we're always looking for resources, so if you wouldn't mind sending that, go ahead.
Okay, the best one on here is this National Center on Intensive Intervention. Oh my God, is that an excellent site? It's by area, by grade level, and don't be put off by the intensive part of it. It's an ideal NCSS site, so I will send that to you.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for your time, Louise. We appreciate your help. So if we have questions going forth, so we just go through the knowledge base.